Aloha, everyone. Today it's leveraging up your voice, your story, your impact. My name is Mamie Lamley, and today we have a very special guest. Her name is Melissa Colegrove. And today we're going to learn more about what her passion is, and we're going to welcome any tidbits that she can give us. Welcome aboard, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd like to start off with a question that I love asking business owners. And that question, Melissa, is this, what inspired you to start your business, and what problems are you solving for the people out there?
It's a great question. So I have a long kind of path to where I came, or the path that I traveled. I started my career in social work, doing community organizing, program development. I did legislative work, really working with marginalized populations. And having been in the nonprofits for 10 years, I burnt out. I experienced an extreme level of burnout after working with a nonprofit where I wore every hat. And I had to take a break and step back. And I had this epiphany one day. I was like, I could work in insurance, I could still be helping people, and I can own my own business eventually. And a little backstory, my whole family has been in insurance, and I swore when I was younger I would never do it. But that revelation was like, okay, I'm going to go into it. And so then I spent the next 10 years as a customer service representative, working with independent State Farm agents, really excelling at de-escalating conflict and managing really high needs customers because I've had the experience as a social worker. And what I noticed over those 10 years was the training that is required for customer service professionals to manage the reactivity of consumers just isn't there. As a social worker, I'm trained in trauma-informed care. And so it struck me that there was some need, and I sat with it for a good 5 years. And at the time when I quit, it was 3 years ago in September, August, I was director of services. I was on the path of, creating a really successful career within the agency, in the agency world, but it just wasn't filling my cup in a way that I knew, because I'm on this planet to really serve in a big way. And so I established my company, MKC Consulting. My programming is called Empowered Service, in which I've bridged those two industries, bringing a trauma-informed lens into the consumer services, specifically within insurance now, while it also applies to any other industry that deals with customers, because my mission is to protect the workforce and engage agents in a way that empowers them to want to take care of the emotional well-being of their team, knowing that that reduces turnover and reduces burnout and improves productivity. So I would say, in terms of what I am solving, is that burnout primarily, and also providing the workforce, the team members, with the tools necessary to create alignment with consumers when there's a real tragic circumstances. And tragic or trauma varies from person to person. Within the insurance world, we are tasked as customer service professionals to hold space for people going through the worst situations in an adult life, whether that means you can't pay your bills, and that's a very vulnerable place to be, whether that's you've caused a car accident that severely injured other people, your house burns down. You think about in the impact of these circumstances on someone's life, and how that triggers all sorts of emotional needs for that person, and then the needs of the person on the other end of the phone to be able to manage that whole relationship. So my goal is really to just put new tools in the hands of those that need it, need it, because secondary trauma is really bad in terms of just having to manage the tensions that come in every single day. For anybody out there who's worked in customer service, specifically in an agent's office or an insurance agency's a company, it's unlike anything else you'll ever experience. So,
Well, what a fascinating service. The ability with your background as a social worker and combining it with the necessities of holding that special space for people when they're going through insurance. And, you know, I actually understand that because for over 15 years, I held space for cancer insurance
Mm,
and my clients. And so I do understand. And you are so right, Melissa, where the ability to bring in empathy, EQ in the situations that you're in, I think that's so priceless, Melissa. So
yeah.
priceless.
Well,
So,
and it's not something that we're taught, right? Like
oh,
we hear all of these cliche terms like, oh, be an active listener and be empathetic and stand in their shoes. But really, when you're tasked with answering 50 to 100 calls a day and a whole task list of things you're supposed to do and pivoting to new services and all there's only so much time. And it's a very fast-paced industry. So we kind of forget that there are humans on the other end of the line and that we ourselves are human. I mean, we talk about AI taking over, but there are people in roles that are already acting and taking the role of a robot because they are forced to not attend to their own emotional needs on the job.
mm,
And that's what leads to burnout. When you omit an entire portion of who you are for the sake of your job, I just think that there's a better way to do it, and it just leads to more fulfillment. So,
that is so powerful. And you brought up a really big term there, burnout. Burnout is the word no one wants to use today, correct?
oh, it's
And
avoided. And the thing that people don't understand about burnout is you can work 15, 20, 30 years in a job that you are in a state of burnout, and you're just not effective or efficient.
very, that's so telling. You know,
Yeah.
based on all that experience, Melissa, if you could give some tips to our listeners, you know, about what you do and how they can make their life better, what would that be? What are some of those
Mm.
tips?
I start with a foundation on values. And when I talk to agents, it's kind of a light bulb moment. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I live by my values, so why wouldn't I include that in my team, right? So when you think about values-oriented work, it's identifying your own personal values, but also as an agency, as an organization, what are your values? Small businesses don't often have the time or the bandwidth to spend the resources to create that, but it's really a simple conversation. So one of the things that I do as a facilitator and an organization and relationship systems coach is I create the space for teams to really dive into what's at the heart of the work that they do and what do they stand for? Because standing in your values allows you to weather storms far more easily than if you're not attached or anchored to anything. The other component to that that's really telling is that when people on a team come together around what values they have as an organization, and they also start to identify what their own personal values are, it is so transformational in how they connect to one another. From a place of, oh, you're in service and I don't deal with service, and you're over there and I'm over here, you start to build these bridges to where there's more compassion within your own organization, to where people want to be more effective because they care about that other person, because they have an alignment around a value, whether it's integrity or their work ethic or honesty. It's truly transformative. I think that's one of the most powerful activities that any small business owner can do. The other part of that, and I always talk about this with agents, is their mission. Because if you work for a corporate entity and you're a small business, your mission is something like, we serve our customers by providing exceptional service and products that protect them from all of life's risks, something to that effect. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. How does your team connect to that? And is that truly because most agents created that mission statement when they were in training 5, 10, 20 years ago? So they really have no connection to it. And being from the nonprofit world, mission-driven work is truly one of those that can become more fulfilling. And so that's another component to think about is what is the foundation that you're standing on? What is the foundation of your culture? And then from that, so much can grow and evolve. And what I like to talk about second to that is really embracing conflict as an emergence of something new trying to happen. If you think about soil, think about conflict being the seed, right? What are you doing to cultivate your soil so that when conflict needs to erupt, it's welcomed into a space and allowed to come up into the light to where people can talk about it so that it's no longer an issue between people. It's something that you can look at together because you're already aligned within your values and your culture. And this conflict, whether it's between people or whether it's between a customer and a team member, the conflict is really just a new understanding. Whether the team member needs to understand where the person is coming from, or the customer needs to understand what the boundaries are in the way that they act towards the office. There's so much that people avoid because conflict is scary and conflict is going to blow up in our face. It's something we should avoid, right? And well, that's just it's innocent. We're humans. We are conflict avoidant, averse, whatever you want to call it. And so those would be the two foundational components is really look at your culture and what are the values and how do you work from those places and how do you empower your team to lean into those when you're going through phases of challenge, whether it's rate increases or corporate changes or the politics, right? Or just the nature of being human. And also really leaning into conflict as an excellent tool for improving how you are together as a team, how you are as a leader, and how you are in relationship to others. I think those are two that I would say that stand out to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I listen to you, and the words that you are sharing really bring out that importance of connection, alignment, and the alignment with the values and what they stand for and how it aligns with the mission, priceless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, listeners, are you leaning into this? Because Melissa brings up a very good point. The point that you are human, and she actually practices that. She's living into that into her business and her life. And I hope that you can feel that. Melissa, when you take a look at the years that you've spent in all that you've done, what is one of the biggest lessons that you've learned, and how are you integrating it into your life?
um, the role in life of an entrepreneur is one that I could never have fathomed prior to being in it. And I remember this is the start of my third official year. The start of my first official year, I had always heard the term feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm.
And not until I stepped out into the world as my own, as a business owner, as the presenter of this service that promises to help transform your team, did I truly understand what that meant. I remember going out in January to a conference with the top 100 agents in State Farm. I mean, these are the guys that are like the best of the best out of 40,000 agents across the world, across the US. And I presented to them on this trauma-informed practice, right? Because what I am doing and what I'm bringing into the business world is not like anything else. It's not numbers driven. It's not sales oriented. It's human focused. It's oriented on the human experience. And that's something that's far outside of the perspective of most business owners because you got to make money. That's the important part, right? And so there was a lot of fear of really standing out there and putting my voice out into the world.
Mm.
And then I know moving forward with this program that I know for me, it's not, I don't come into any organization knowing what they need. My job is to elicit the wisdom that is existing within that system, within that team. And so every time I go into a new team, it's different, right? And it's scary because I don't know if they're going to receive me, how they're, what are they going to perceive and what do I need to provide for them? And all these questions, because we live in this world of perfectionism and doing things right and, having all the answers. And I feel like I'm truly living into the human experience of just being messy and coming fully out with my heart open and saying, I don't know the answers to your problems, but I am here to help you facilitate that growth and find exactly what it is that is going to support you and your team. So
I love it. I love it. Listeners, are you hearing that? Melissa's here to make that difference. And you know what? Not to be afraid of also making that dollar.
yeah.
Difference in a dollar. And yes, it could be aligned and balanced. I can hear it. I can feel it, Melissa. I love your commitment and where you're coming from. If our listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Email, my website has also links. You can reach me at Melissa, MELISSA, at empoweredservice.coach, COACH. I also have my email, which is, oh no, that was my email. My website is empoweredservice.coach. I'd love to hear from people, even if it's just to collaborate or talk about how you're bringing your values-driven work into the world. I think it's desperately needed right now, and it's something that brings us so much life and joy. So I love connecting with other people.
And I can feel it through the camera, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been
Yes,
wonderful.
absolutely. So, listeners, if you'd like to connect with Melissa, we're going to actually add all of her information to a tag on this replay. I hope that you listened in, you leaned in. This interview is not an interview. It is a testament to what Melissa stands for. And I hope that you also felt that. And so for now, we're going to say yes to alignment with values. We're going to say yes to alignment with the mission and your heart, because leveraging up is all about that. It's about your voice, your story, your impact. And we can't do it without people just like Melissa. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mamie. This was
You're
wonderful.
very
It's so nice to
welcome.
meet you.